this is Yana Swakula, member of Spellbinders design team. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a stylish card using Spellbinders Deco Chevron Texture Plate die from the Art Deco collection by Stacy Karen. Here's a look at this die. It's a rather large die that measures 5 by 7 inches, so perfect for 5 by 7 or smaller projects. Now, this is a texture plate, so it doesn't cut the design out. It allows you to emboss the design onto your paper or to impress it and create texture on your projects. There are many things you can use it for. I'm going to create a double embossed background for my today's project. I'm adding little pieces of washi tape to my texture plate so that I have something to hold it with. You'll understand why I need those in just a minute. I'm using my Versamark embossing ink pad and gently inking my texture plate. I want to make sure I cover the entire surface of this die with this clear sticky embossing ink. I have a sheet of black cardstock and I've prepped it using my anti-static powder pouch. I'm using it to keep my embossing, and by embossing in this particular case, I mean heat embossing, nice and clean. You don't have to do this. In fact, you can completely skip this if you're going for the look that I'm sharing in this video. Next, I'm going to use the washi tape handles to pick up the die and place it onto my black cardstock. I'm avoiding touching the die as I don't want to have any ink transfer, and this is why I'm using the washi tape to pick the die up. I'm also using the same washi tape to secure the die in place on my paper. You want to make sure your die doesn't move or your paper doesn't move once the paper touches the die for best results. Think of this as stamping with your dies. Next, I'm using my platinum die cutting and embossing machine and my magnetic platform. I'm going to set my die onto my platform with the inked design facing up, covered with the paper, so the paper is facing up. Next, use my dry embossing sandwich, cover with a tan embossing mat and embossing plate, and send through the machine. Because this is such a large and solid die, I like to send the sandwich through at an angle. It just makes it a little easier to go through. I'm going to carefully separate the paper from the die, and here you can see this absolutely beautiful embossing. I think it looks just stunning, and it should look beautiful on any other colors of cardstock too. Now, if your paper tore while being embossed, you might want to use a thicker cardstock for this technique. Now, to do the double embossing technique, I'm going to add embossing powder onto this dry embossed background. I'm using embossing powder in gold and covering the entire surface of this element. It's not clean. You can see that embossing powder particles ended up sticking to the raised areas and not only to the sections that we applied ink to. I like this look, so I'm going to go with it. But if you'd like to have a cleaner double embossed background, you can use a dry brush and just brush away the embossing powder particles from this background. Next, I'm using my heat tool and heat setting this embossing powder, melting it and giving this piece a beautiful metallic shine. It takes a minute to melt all of that embossing powder, but I think the result is very beautiful. And this is why this technique is called double embossing. We first emboss the background using the die and then emboss the background again, but using embossing powder for the second embossing. Now, instead of embossing powder, you can use ink, pigment ink or chalk ink to ink up your texture plate and create stunning backgrounds. Here's an example done using gold pigment ink. This background wasn't embossed, it was textured. I created it using my cutting sandwich instead of my embossing sandwich, and you can see the difference in embossed background versus textured background. Here's another example. This one was embossed onto gold mirror cardstock. It also looks very beautiful. And here's one last example using gold pigment ink and embossing. You can see how that compares to the textured background with the gold ink. The rest is very simple. Trim your background panel. I trimmed mine to 7 by 4.5 inches and adhere it onto a black 5 by 7 card base. I also created a sentiment using gold and black colors to match. It reads, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle," and foam mounted that onto my project. I hope this video has inspired you to create with your Spellbinders Art Deco dies. Be sure to come back and watch other videos on our YouTube channel for more ideas. If you have any questions about this card, please leave them in the comments section below, and be sure to subscribe to Spellbinders YouTube channel for more education and inspiration. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!